never imagined that a simple moving job would lead me to experience something so terrifying. I'm just a moving assistant, with little interest in horror stories or anything of the sort. But what happened in that house changed me forever. It was a hot summer afternoon when I got the call. The move seemed simple. A family relocating to a house in the countryside. My friends, the truck driver, and I went there. It was nothing more than an isolated house, with an old fence and what appeared to be a property abandoned for some time. The first thing that caught my attention was the strange feeling of being watched, but I tried to ignore it. When we arrived at the house, the family was there, but they weren't very friendly. They were visibly tense, with a somber expression that didn't match a happy move. The father looked worried but didn't say much. The mother, a woman with a distant look, stayed near the door the whole time, almost as if trying to avoid going inside. Shortly after we started unloading the furniture, something caught my attention. The sound of footsteps, quick and dragging, came from inside the house. I thought it might be one of the kids, but when I looked inside, it was completely empty. Only the echo of the steps remained, growing louder until it abruptly stopped. It made me break into a cold sweat. I looked at the others, but no one else seemed to have heard anything. Night fell quickly, and I was exhausted. I was beginning to pack up the last boxes when I saw something. Through the window, a shadow moved quickly through the yard. I thought it was an animal, but then I heard a low laugh, almost inaudible, coming from upstairs. Apparently, the family was already inside the house, so who or what was up there? I went into the house, and there, at the top of the stairs, the air suddenly turned icy. The lights flickered, and for a second, I saw something. A hooded figure, its face indistinguishable. It stood at the doorway of a room, staring at me. The worst part, however, was that when I tried to approach, it disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. I ran out, my heart pounding in my chest like never before. When I talked about it with the truck driver, he just looked at me as if he already knew. "The house has claimed many souls," he said. "Some people say that once you go inside, you never leave the same." In the end, the family moved in the next day. However, the strangest thing of all is that months later, I heard that the house was sold again. But no one dared to live there for more than a week. When I went back, I found the house empty. A sign on the door read, "Property for sale." I've never been able to shake the feeling that something is still there, watching, waiting. And even now, no matter where I go, I can still hear, from time to time, the dragging footsteps. Working late has never been an issue for me. I'm a night security guard at a commercial building downtown. The night shift is usually calm. The silence is almost relaxing. But that night, something happened. Something I can't forget. The building has 15 floors, and during the night shift, I'm the only person there. My job consists of periodic patrols and monitoring the security cameras. Everything was normal until around 2 a.m., when I heard the sound of a ding coming from the elevator. It caught my attention because at that hour, no one should have been there. I looked at the monitor and saw that the elevator had gone up by itself to the 7th floor. The doors opened, but there was no one there. I was intrigued but assumed it could be a technical issue. I should have ignored it, but I decided to investigate. I took the other elevator and went up to the 7th floor. When the doors opened, the floor was empty, as expected. The lights flickered slightly, which was common in old buildings, but there was something strange in the air. A strong metallic smell, like rust, filled the hallway. I checked all the rooms but found nothing out of the ordinary. I decided to head back to my post, thinking maybe I was just tired. When I entered the elevator, I noticed that all the buttons were pressed. I tried to reset them, but they wouldn't respond. Frustrated, I sighed and prepared to stop at every floor on the way down. But that's not what happened. The elevator began to ascend. It passed the 8th floor, then the 9th, 10th, and kept going even after reaching the 15th. The panel displayed impossible numbers: 16, 17, 18. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the elevator shouldn't be going anywhere. It kept climbing, faster and faster, until the lights flickered and went out. Everything went dark. The elevator came to a sudden stop, throwing me against the wall. When the doors opened, I expected to see the usual brightly lit hallway. Instead, I saw a dark corridor with walls covered in scratch marks and dark stains. A low, constant sound echoed, like whispers from countless voices, all speaking at once. I called on the radio, but all I got was static. I tried pressing the elevator buttons to go back down, but they didn't work. Then, at the end of the corridor, I saw something. A pale, thin figure stood there, staring directly at me. It had no face, just smooth skin where its eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. My instincts told me to run, but my legs felt glued to the floor. The figure started moving toward me, each step echoing as if it were inside my head. When I finally managed to move, I stepped back into the elevator and frantically pressed the button to close the doors. The doors finally closed, but not before I heard a horrifying sound. A guttural scream, as if it came from something inhuman. The elevator began to descend this time, far too quickly, and I felt my stomach lurch into my throat. It stopped abruptly at the ground floor, and the doors opened. The building seemed normal again. The metallic smell was gone, and the cameras showed only empty hallways. I tried convincing myself it was all just a nightmare, but when I checked the monitors, I saw something that froze me to the core. On one of the screens on the 7th floor, the faceless figure stood motionless, staring directly at the camera. I quit the next day. No matter where I go now, sometimes, when I'm alone in an elevator, I hear that familiar ding and the faint sound of whispers. It was supposed to be a quiet night. I was home alone, enjoying the silence after an exhausting week at work. My house isn't big, a small cabin tucked away from the city, surrounded by trees. I always enjoyed the solitude of the place. Until that night, the storm started around 11 p.m. Lightning lit up the sky, and the wind made the tree branches knock against the windows. I was in the living room reading when I heard it for the first time. A faint, repetitive sound, like something lightly tapping the window of my upstairs bedroom. I thought it was just a branch swaying in the wind, but the sound was different, too constant, too precise. I ignored it and kept reading, but the sound persisted. Tap, tap, tap. I went upstairs to check. When I entered the bedroom, the window was closed, and outside there was nothing but the darkness of the forest. A chill ran down my spine, but I convinced myself it was just paranoia. I closed the curtains and went back to the living room. I had barely sat down when I heard it again, but this time it seemed to come from the kitchen window. I went over, flashlight in hand, but there was nothing there, just the wind and the rain. I scanned the yard with the beam of light, illuminating the nearby trees, but everything seemed normal. Even so, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I went back inside, locked all the doors and windows, and tried to distract myself. I turned on the TV, turned up the volume, but the sound continued. It was as if it was moving from window to window, circling me. Around 2 a.m., the sound stopped. The silence that followed was even more unsettling. It was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. That's when I noticed something. The curtain on the living room window was slightly open, just enough for me to see something outside. Two eyes, staring right at me. Frozen, I could barely move. When I finally mustered the courage, I ran to the door, but it wouldn't open. It was as if it was locked from the outside. I heard footsteps behind me, but when I turned around, the living room was empty. I ran upstairs, locking myself in the bedroom. I tried calling the police, but the line was dead. Suddenly, the sound began again. It was no longer a simple tapping. Now it was a loud pounding, as if something was trying to break in. I closed my eyes and pressed myself against the wall, trying not to make a sound. But the noise wasn't coming from the window anymore. It was inside the house. Slow, deliberate footsteps echoed in the hallway. Something stopped in front of my bedroom door. I could hear its heavy breathing. A deadly silence followed, and then 3 knocks on the door. Tap, tap, tap. I don't remember how the night ended. When I woke up, it was morning. The house was silent, but the front door was open, gently swaying in the wind. Outside, in the mud of the yard, there were footprints, not human. Something that seemed to drag itself, with sharp claws leaving deep grooves in the ground. Since then, I can't sleep in silence. I always leave the TV or the radio on, but sometimes, in the middle of the night, I still hear the knocking.